I wanted to wait before I made this video because January 6th was so recent and I wanted to let the evidence, the documents, the photos all surface on the internet so I could begin to investigate. And now that they have, it's becoming very clear that this was an inside job. Let's just get right into it. The first piece of evidence is Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, or Boebert, however you pronounce her name. But let's start out with the fact that she is an avid QAnon supporter. It's on the record, it's on the internet. You can look that up. But aside from that, I want to remind you guys that just a week ago, she put out an outrageous propaganda campaign ad video of herself basically walking down the streets of DC saying that she's going to carry her Glock to Congress because that is her freedom and the Democrats want to take away her guns and she won't let them. And coincidentally, she carries her gun a week later to Congress when there is the terrorist attack, probably to defend herself because she knew this was going to happen. Now, this could just be a coincidence, but her tweets would suggest otherwise. So get this. During the siege on the Capitol, Lauren tweets out that they are locked in the House chambers, essentially letting all of her QAnon and crazy Trump supporters know where they're all gathered. And then, minutes later, responds to her own tweet saying that the speaker has been removed from the chambers. Now, this is bizarre for a congresswoman to let an angry mob of terrorists know where the Speaker of the House is. Nancy Pelosi, the third in line to become president if Mike Pence or Donald Trump were to decease or be unable to serve in office. She outed Pelosi's location, basically telling them, hey, don't go to the chambers, Pelosi's not here. Or on the contrary, letting the mob know that Pelosi is no longer in the Capitol or the Senate floor, basically giving the green light to the mob to storm the Capitol and break into Nancy Pelosi's office, which is exactly what they did. A man kicked his feet up on her desk, defiled her documents, ripped everything out of her cupboards, and then left a death threat on her table. Which brings me to the next suspicious event that happened on January 6th. Now, we've all seen the footage of the police letting the mob in. They opened the gate for them and allow them to go on the steps and ultimately break windows and overpower the police, which, by the way, the police were incredibly understaffed that day, which is very weird considering this was a monumental day in American tradition where the senators and the vice president convene to pass the power along to the next administration. Think about that. Every powerful person in Washington is gathered up in the same room, and on that day, you decide to have the bare minimum of police officers and Capitol security. And not just the fact that there were barely any police officers, they opened the back door for some of the mob as well, to which they stormed in, urinated, defecated, and smoked marijuana on the Senate floor. Some of them even took selfies with the police officers, which means to me that the police officers didn't have any fear of the mob's violence or the fact that they're trespassing and vandalizing federal property, which means that they were informed that this was going to happen beforehand. Now, we'll come back to the officers, but I want to hone in on the minority whip, Senator James Clyburn, Democrat, who got his office broken into. Now, what's so disturbing about this is that he has an unmarked office. That means there is no name tag nor title outside his door, so you wouldn't be able to find his office unless someone on the inside told you where it was. In fact, James Clyburn himself was so off-put by his office being vandalized and trespassed and defiled that he, in fact, put out on his own Twitter that he also thinks that this is an inside job. Now, again, you could say he's paranoid or that the Trump mobs just got really lucky with finding his office without a name tag on it. But okay, fine. Let's continue on with more evidence. We have Ginny Thomas, the wife of the Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas, whom after investigations we've found out that she paid for 70 buses for the MAGA mob to attend the Save America rally, which led to the insurrection acts on the Capitol. Not only did she pay for the buses, but she put out posts on her Facebook that day congratulating the Patriots and wishing them luck in their fight to save our country and stop the steal. Now, mind you, this is coming from the wife of the highest branch of government. The Supreme Court judges are all supposed to be bipartisan servants to this country and uphold the Constitution and the law. And you're telling me Clarence Thomas didn't know about this? Please, give me a break. And also, we had Senator Josh Hawley walk out, face the mob, and hold up his fist like he was saluting the Nazi Party. Mind you, this is to a group of terrorists who assaulted the US Capitol, a mob who killed a police officer. And then, as the attacks were going on, Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz were sending out fundraiser texts and emails to their donors asking for donations. I mean, you could call that a coincidence too, I guess. But to me, that just plays out like, hey, look at what's going on your TV right now. That's because people like us are fighting to keep your country in the hands of Donald Trump. We're going to stop the steal and we're going to fight back against these Democrats, so you need to donate to us. And to further prove my point, the two of them continued to protest the election after they reconvened at 3 in the morning. The entire reason the MAGA mob assaulted the Capitol is because of the lie that this election was stolen without any evidence. So the fact that Hawley and Cruz continue to do this tells me that they were in on some plan to continue the protest, as if they were under somebody's orders. And I wonder whose orders those could be. Now, the next piece of suspicious evidence that we have is the fact that the National Guard was not deployed for 3 hours. Now, Mayor Bowser called for the National Guard to be deployed the instant the Capitol became under siege. But then we find out that the National Guard was not authorized by the Department of Defense, which is ironic because we remember how fast the National Guard was deployed when the Black Lives Matter protests were going on. But they had strict orders to stand back on what was probably the biggest terrorist attack to ever hit DC. Now let's keep moving forward. Next we had Alex Jones, the right-wing conspiracy theorist nutbag, who went on to admit that the White House called him 3 days prior to January 6th and asked him to lead the mob to the Capitol, which is very alarming for them to keep it so hush-hush if it was supposed to be a peaceful rally. And by the way, Alex Jones was building up this momentum towards January 6th, encouraging all of his followers to get angry and get ready to fight back. He posted these on social media weeks prior, as did other right-wingers like Charlie Kirk and the psychotic lawyer Lynn Wood. Which brings me to my next point. How on earth did the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the CIA not find these posts on the internet and immediately raise a red flag for possible domestic terrorism or violence? We've all seen the movie Snowden. We know how fast they are to act on posts of violence, terrorism, and the MAGA mob was outright posting online, whether it was Parler, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, that January 6th was going to be the day that they fought back and stormed the Capitol, and nothing was done about it. They didn't even remove the posts nor investigate it. Well, it's probably because they wanted it to happen, or they were given orders by the White House to stand down. And who knows how far they wanted it to go. Luckily, there were some good policemen, and the National Guard finally came 3 hours later to shut this thing down, or we might have dead congressmen and senators on our hands. And come on, we have footage of these maskless maggots walking through the Capitol as if they're at some sort of amusement park with their heads on a swivel, except they've broken in. And the fact that there was a mob chanting "Hang Mike Pence," the Vice President of the United States, and the police still let them in and take selfies with them, tells me that this was an inside job, a plan hatched from the top, most likely by Donald Trump and his enablers, in an effort to have the people overthrow the government and hand him the election by force. And the fact that Republicans are wanting the Democrats to move on from this for the sake of unity tells me that there were a lot more Republicans involved on this inside job. I'm going to be investigating this as there is more evidence coming out by the hour, so make sure you subscribe for the daily videos and I will continue to uncover the truth.